Well, all very well, but I suppose I'm thinking peace must be the priority. As President Trump said himself, too many people are dying. And I'm asking this hour about what you think about Trump's about turn. Do you think it's going to hold? He's saying now that there was no reason for the Russian president to be shooting missiles into civilian areas, cities and towns over the last few days. It makes me think, says Trump, that maybe he doesn't want to stop the war. He's just tapping me along and has to be dealt with differently. Does this cheer you? Does it make you more optimistic about an end to the war soon? Or maybe you're thinking, well, if Putin is determined to continue this war at all costs, what can the Americans do short of a provocation that we all might find rather scary? Can they pull these financial levers, the banking sanctions and secondary sanctions and so on? Will any of that make the least bit of difference to someone like President Putin, who, as my guest said earlier, thinks he is winning this war? Give me a call, 0345 6060 973, text 84850. Send a comment to LBC via Alexa. We're going to come back to your calls and texts on that subject in just a moment. But first, to go to a tragic, awful situation in Vancouver, which is the car ramming attack that has happened that has killed several people. We're going to go now to speak to Stuart Benson, who is a reporter for the Hill Times in Ottawa. Thank you so much for joining us, Stuart. Can you tell us the latest on what's happened, please?
Yes, so we've just had an update from Vancouver Police. I heard before the break he updated that they've now updated the death toll to 11. With, I think, dozens more injured. They've sent, I think, across to about 9 different hospitals overnight in critical to serious condition. VPD said that 11 number could rise in the coming days or weeks. They've also sort of confirmed or clarified that they don't believe that this was an act of terrorism. They said this 30-year-old suspect had an extensive history with both law enforcement and social services, healthcare workers concerning mental health issues. So I believe that will most likely turn out to not be something like that. Just from the sort of damage, I guess he must have been going incredibly fast. The damage seemed to have been across a couple of blocks. This was happening at a Filipino festival, a quite large one, for Lapu-Lapu Day. It's the second one. It became like a provincial holiday, I believe, in 2023. I think officials were saying there were about 100,000 people in attendance. One of our federal party leaders, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, had just left the event about, I think, maybe minutes before this occurred. There are also provincial, federal candidates and politicians there as well. So I think the questions now are just sort of what were the risk assessments and precautions that were taken and what could have been sort of done better.
Also, as we say, we know this man had mental health issues and so on, and a long relationship, if we can put it like that, with the police. But this was a Filipino festival, which does lead me to wonder whether it was a racially driven attack, a racism driven attack, I suppose.
Well, I don't know if that's going to be it. It seems like there have been those questions. I've seen videos of the suspect that was apprehended on the scene. I'm not a doctor, but I don't know if this is going to be to turn out that way. I think this is just going to be a tragedy. Obviously, there's this. Tensions I think were kind of raw. This is about 3 days out from the 4-year anniversary of the Toronto van attack on Yonge Street. That was sort of a misogynistically motivated attack. It was another van vehicle ramming attack. But I don't believe that this is what this will be. I think this will be. I don't want to make any sort of guesses on it, but obviously that is something that people are concerned about. But I think with how the police emphasized it, I think it's more leaning towards a mental health issue. The vehicle seems to belong to a family associate.
Right. And the timing is obviously notable, isn't it? Because the elections are happening tomorrow.
Yes, polls will open about 9 a.m. tomorrow.
So do you think, is this timing looking more than a coincidence to you? Do you think the lunatic, or should I maybe call him a lunatic? We don't know much about him at the moment. But do we think the person who did this was trying to send some twisted message. Any sense of that? Just the timing is odd, isn't it?
I think it's it's sort of a. Obviously, people are going to make those connections and have those questions are going to sort of be answered. I can't make those guesses. Obviously, as far as how it's going to impact the election or if it will, like if there was a mess, I don't know if that's it. It almost feels too raw for anyone to even have it affect what they think yet. I don't even know if anyone knows what to think about it yet. So. Yeah, I don't know if I want to comment on if that's going to be
just the acts of someone with a diseased mind, obviously. Well, thank you so much, Stuart, for joining us. Stuart is a reporter for the Hill Times in Ottawa, and talking about that horrible tragedy. Obviously, our thoughts go to all those people affected, whose lives have just been devastated by those actions. Coming back to our subject of the hour, about President Trump and his about turn on President Putin. He thought he was the cat's pajamas seemingly a week or so ago and was blaming Ukraine for being invaded. Now he's saying that he thinks he's been tapped along by President Putin and maybe has to be dealt with differently. He makes me think, he says, it makes me think rather, the bombing this is, that maybe he doesn't want to stop the war. Maybe he doesn't want to stop the war. Maybe he has no intention. Maybe he's just been playing you like a fiddle. But regardless of Trump's journey to this point, do you feel that now the US president has fallen in line with, I suppose, the way that many in the West are seeing it and the way that many in Europe see it? Do you think you are cheered by this? Do you feel that you're optimistic about the war ending soon? Or do you think the fact that he doesn't want to end the war, the fact that Putin doesn't want to end the war, ties the US's hands a bit about what they can actually do, what levers they can pull? Give me a call and let me know your thoughts. 0345 6060 973. We're going to go to calls again. Charlie's in Goole, East Yorkshire. Good evening, Charlie.
Hi, Claire. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. What are your views on the about turn and how this plays out with the war?
Well, I'm thinking there is another alternative, which is to have a no-fly zone or some sort of, make Ukraine safe from the air zone, if you know what I mean. So drones, aeroplanes, none of that is allowed to fly, and that's put into force by America and UK and the willing. And I think if you have the air and
what do they do then if there are Russian aircraft in that space? They shoot it down?
Shoot it down, yeah.
What, the UK and US do?
Well, UK, US, France, the whole lot.
Wouldn't that then potentially lead to World War III?
No, I don't think so. Do you think so? Really? Airplanes have been shot down, so... and it hasn't caused anything so far. But I'm thinking just a no-fly zone where the Russians wouldn't even be tempted to fly into it because the Americans and the rest of the coalition are willing. So no, you can't put your airplanes over Ukraine.
Well, I think that would be. They don't want They don't want a single NATO member, a single soldier of a NATO member on their border, do they? In any way, on their doorstep. I think that would count for Putin as a great provocation. And obviously, if we were living in a fair world, we would say, well, he's not in the right, he's in the wrong, he's the aggressor, and so on. But I think at this point, given how much is on the line for him reputationally, and he is someone who thinks in terms of the way that we in the rest of Europe often don't think in terms of his national identity, that this is probably a real do or die moment for Russian pride. I think we just have to be very, very careful and try and get both sides to tiptoe away at this point, even if the deal isn't entirely favourable or entirely just or entirely right. I think peace has to be the priority.
Do you not think that because Russia can send aeroplanes over at any point and bomb Ukraine, that's a problem, and we need to stop that happening?
Of course, it's a problem, but this is why I think diplomatic talks are the way out rather than just enforcing a no-fly zone, which is enforced by Western militaries. Anyway, thank you, Charlie. Have to go now because of the break. Keep your calls and your texts coming in on this subject. 0345